Thanks for coming to the regular city council meeting, September 11th, 2017. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I think before we move on, even in the roll call, to a little bit of remembrance for the 16th anniversary of 9/11, that we take about a minute to have a moment of silence. Please join us. Okay, thank you. I think I also want to send out our condolences and thoughts and prayers to all the people in Florida right now going through a tremendous disaster. We don't know how bad this is going to be ending up before it's over. It's looking, some places looks really bad, it's still going on. So we want to remember them as well. So. Roll call, everyone's here. Approval of the minutes of August 28th, 2017.
I'll move the minutes.
No support. All in favor?
Yeah, Mary can't
Oh,
do it.
sorry.
Oh, you weren't here, Mary. You was
Just
right. You
kidding.
cannot.
Never mind.
I'll move the
kidding.
minutes. I'll move the minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And welcome back, Mary.
Thank you. Thanks.
Approval of the bills.
Question?
Megan?
Thank you. Lynn, I just wanted to ask and get clarification on two payments. The first payment is on the check register. I'm on page 2. I'm looking at the payment that is $1,018,000. I assume that is the sewer bond payment. Bank of New York, Mellon?
Yes,
And then the payment just above that, I wasn't sure what that was, the 194,000. That's the South Lyon Community Schools.
that is a transfer of taxes
Oh,
to the schools.
We do a transfer.
We collect all the taxes and then transfer the school's taxes back to them.
Okay, so that's, because it said, the description says debt. So I just want to make sure that's not a debt. I
No,
mean, it's a transfer of
It's the
monies
school
collected.
operating on school debt taxes.
Okay, thank you very much.
That's actually a parallel to the library debt payment above that. We distribute their, we collect and then distribute. I had one on page 3 of 6. The capital improvements, professional services for $650 from Plant Moran. What is their role in the capital improvements?
That would probably be part of the audit of the capital improvement fund.
Oh, okay, just assigned to that
Yes.
particular fund. Okay, thank you.
I'll move the bills.
I'll
Second.
support. Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Approval of the agenda.
I don't have any additions or removals.
I'll move the agenda.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It's a race.
Public comment. Anyone wishes to speak on anything not on the agenda this evening? Carl's not here, wishing him a little bit of recovery. He's still nursing his little accident, so.
I hear he's doing pretty well.
Okay, old business. appointment of Aaron Letovsky to the Planning Commission.
I'd like to second that.
I think Aaron comes with a lot of good experience. I've known her for quite a while, on and off through the years. She's got a Bachelor of Science in Architecture, and this is her thing. So I think she'll be good asset.
She has a construction company. She has a complete understanding of the environment, so I think she's a great fit.
All in favor?
Aye.
Welcome, Aaron. Okay, consider the first reading of the ordinance amendment of the rezoning of partial 2130, 125-003 West End Industrial Park from the I-1 District Light Industrial to the RM1 District Multiple Family Residential.
This item had been postponed to this specific meeting, pending the city receiving additional information. As you'll note, you should have a letter in your packet from our planning director, or our planning consultant, Carmen Aventini, talking about the fact that we have not received that information as of yet, that it is our intention to get it back as soon as possible. And he does apologize for the delay, but being an outside consultant, he doesn't have control over that company. I know Mr. Linnell and his client are here. I am sure that they would like to address the council regarding this, but it is my recommendation that the council not make a decision but postpone again until we have that report from Roe.
I think that's a prudent thing to do. I make the motion that we postpone this item until the first October meeting.
I second.
My question on that is that long enough? Do we know for sure that we're going to have the material then?
Yes.
Okay.
Call the vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Sorry for that, guys. I'm just kind of curious, had these gentlemen been notified that that was a likely?
I think there was a miscommunication between Mr. Aventini and I. When he submitted the letter to me, it was my understanding that he was going to contact them and let them know. And when Mr. Wilhelm and I spoke this afternoon, we discussed it, and I was not sure, and I was caught up in a meeting this afternoon until well after 5 and unable to make a call to make sure that they knew.
Well, we had enough information in our packet that absolutely should have taken place, so, I mean, I feel bad that you guys were
Yeah, sorry
inconvenienced
for
to
the
come here.
inconvenience.
Thank you. I guess just quickly, we understand that we've been tabled, but, and I don't want to keep revisiting an issue, especially when it's not really before you, but this has been going on for months, and the study that Carmine commissioned, if that's the right term, because I don't know exactly how that came about. It was news to us the last time we were here.
Are you talking about the Fuller appraisal or the new one? Okay.
Well, full appraisal, the Rowe Engineering, which we were unaware was being commissioned, and I'm not trying to imply that information is being withheld from us, but the process has been cumbersome, to say the least. And that's probably the nicest way I can say it. And I have all these gentlemen here who all have other things to do, and not to say that you guys don't have important things to do, but is there any way going forward, because I don't want to be up here for a long time, is there any way going forward that we can get advance notice, because they've had to change some of their schedules, because this question was discussed amongst us. And I said, no, we're going to have us on the agenda. I'm not aware of any issue that's preventing us. We provide our response. I am admittedly, we're a little concerned because we hadn't received any additional study for us to look at. But is there a way that we can be provided advance notice? Again, not that we don't want to be on the very next agenda possible, but some advance notice so that I can make sure that my client, as well as his professionals, have a chance to be here and answer questions, address the council, and hopefully move this forward in some fashion.
I think it's a very valid point, very valid question.
I agree, and I will make sure that it's on my calendar to let them know any updates that we've got and anything that comes up with it, rather than relying on anyone else to update them.
And I have no problem checking in. I understand it's a fluid situation, so this really isn't directed at any particular person or effort. But I guess my first question would be, has Roe committed to a date? I know that Mr. Fuller, who I happen to know, so I don't want to say anything negative about Mr. Fuller, I don't feel that way about him, but the date kept moving and going to get there and hopefully get there, and no hard dates. And I know that he might be busy, and maybe Roe is busy, but has they committed to a date so that at least we can say, I can check back with you instead of just put it all on you? I'll check. But
It's my understanding they have committed to a date. I will follow up with Mr. Aventini tomorrow, and I will email you with the information.
is that possibly a date you could share, or has it been shared with you?
It hasn't been shared with me.
Mary?
I just, again, I apologize for any inconvenience, but in the future, just to avoid any further miscommunication, if you don't hear from our city manager, then I would encourage you to then send an email or follow up and do your due diligence as well, just so that there is no miscommunication in the future, because we want to see this move along as well. We understand that it's been tedious for you, and it's been a process, and we feel the same way. At least I can speak for myself, but I don't know how anyone else on council feels, but.
He did follow up with me last week as he was putting together his response letter, and I knew that it had been postponed to this meeting. I did not have the information from Carmine that we weren't going to have the study ready until Thursday.
Well, I've got a question then, because in the information that Carmen had supplied, he also speaks to the idea that once they've got it and he feels confident that Roe has provided the information that he was actually looking for, that Fuller will end up will do an assessment of that proposal as well. So are we going to be waiting for Fuller's response?
Not that I'm aware of, no, but I will follow up with Carmen and let the council and Mr. Linnell and his clients know tomorrow.
Now, is there anything that would keep us from providing the data from, or whatever the project is, from Roe to these gentlemen, so that when we do have the meeting, that they'll be able to speak directly to what input we're looking at as an alternative method to try to maintain the industrial nature of that property?
No, there would be nothing preventing us from providing it. It would be public information.
I think that would end up being in our best interest to shave the time off of them doing an analysis of what Roe's providing to us, so that they could weigh in on that. If we can come to an accord, maybe they'll end up seeing that as a terrific opportunity to maintain the industrial nature of that property.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
We'll go backwards for a minute. Say hi to Aaron. You've been appointed to the Planning Commission. You've been appointed.
I have?
So, yeah, so if you'd like to say something or whatever.
You can try to be on time for the meeting.
Hope you're better at
getting
showing
better.
up at the meetings.
We're getting better.
Oh, you're getting better. Okay.
Carl wasn't here either.
I don't have anything to say. If
Introduce yourself.
I'm Erin Kopkowski, 202 North Wells Street, South Lyon. And I was here for 10 years on council, and I thought I'd give a go at planning because it looks like you need some help, and it's kind of what I do for a living.
Yep, welcome.
Congratulations.
Welcome aboard.
All right,
You're
sounds
joining.
good.
Thank you.
Consider revised vacation accrual policies for all non-union employees, department heads, and city manager.
Okay,
Excuse the-
Sorry. As the council has discussed previously, this revised resolution limits the accumulation of annual leave for department heads, the city manager, and all non-union administrative employees. These, along with the changes to the leave accumulation and payout upon separation in the AFSCME contract, establishes and enacts this policy change for approximately 50% of the full-time employees, and we will continue making those changes as we move forward with other contract negotiations.
Peggy?
I had just a quick question, Tim, on a drafting issue. The motion includes, the language is accrual policies for all non-union employees, and the key there is non-union employees. When I go to the actual resolution itself, maybe I'm missing this, it talks about the city manager or department heads. For example, when I look at section BI, city manager and department heads. When I go to 2, city manager, department head. Are we now eliminating non-union employees?
No, this is it arises out of the way the personnel manual is organized. And so 3G pertains only to the department heads and the city manager. Specifically, so it's an overtime pay section. It then has definitions, eligibility, individuals, and then subsection 4 is city manager and department heads only. And it's only 2 subsections, 2 sentences. That's why that came separately. And then to deal with the remainder of the issues and all the other employees, that's where section 11 and 12 come in with additional revisions to the policy.
Okay, so that's the clarification.
It's a little confusing because section 3 has a call-out specifically for department heads and city managers only. That's why that language in section 3 pertains only to them. And that was brought forward separately on its own. And we went back and addressed the other employees. And that's why, looking through the personnel manual, sections 11 and 12, those sections deal with all employees. And I think everything should match up at this point, except for the frozen bank concept, because the department heads and city manager were eligible to bank more time than other employees.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank
you for that clarification. You did a nice job.
In G4B, Roman numeral 3, in the middle of that, it says, from the frozen bank may be considered. You add the B.
What was the sub?
3, Roman numeral 3. Right in the middle of that paragraph. I'll make a motion that we approve the revision for the vacation accrual policies for the non-union employees, department heads, and city manager with that amendment.
I'll second.
And if I could just, Mr. Mayor, spend a little bit of time. So what we did here is it's the maximum of 5 days for 2 years for a total of 10 days total. I think it's broken out by days and hours. And the one clarification was that accrued carryover time, it's called carryover time, will not be paid out at separation, was the big clarification since the last time the council addressed it. So you use it, you lose it, use it or lose it, it doesn't get paid out if you separate from the city for whatever reason.
Very good. Thank you.
All right, so we have a motion, we have a
Motion
second.
and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, Tim.
Yeah, that got cleared up pretty quickly. That was nice.
New business, consider the second reading of the ordinance to reduce the number of planning commission members from 9 to 7 and bring the division into compliance with the Michigan Planning Enabling Act.
I'm actually going to let Tim handle this.
Mr. Mayor and Council, so this, you approved the first reading, there's no changes, and this really cleans up, there's been difficulty getting 9 members. In talking with Carmen, that is a large number for a community of this size. Reducing it to 7 is allowed by law. This reduces that. And looking at the ordinance, there were changes to provisions pertaining to the Planning Commission in the zoning ordinance after the amendments to and the creation of the Zoning Enabling Act. There were no changes in the Planning Commission provisions outside of the zoning ordinance to address the Michigan Planning Enabling Act. This cleans up those issues as well as reducing the number.
Well, this is kind of, I mean, it's still on topic, but off topic to an extent. When I went online to our city website to kind of get an idea of who's on the planning commission, who's not, I've only ever attended a handful of planning commission meetings, so I'm not familiar with the members. The website is out of date. It's not up to the people who are actually there or who are sitting right now and who have resigned. So I guess my request would be that we update that because that information should be available for the public. I had to do my due diligence, which I'm not complaining about, but I had to reach out to Carmine and just double check, see who's actually on, who's off, and what the vacancies are.
I will get that information from Lisa tomorrow and get it updated.
Thank you.
All right, then I'll make the motion to approve the second reading of the ordinance to repeal the existing and adopt a new Division 4 and Chapter 2, Article 5 of the Code of Ordinances for the City of South Lyon.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Consider the second reading of the ordinance to increase the value of purchases requiring city council approval and competitive bidding and clarify purchasing authority in emergency circumstances.
All right, we've discussed this in the past, and Tim and I have gone over it, and this is the second reading. What it does is it gets our purchasing ordinance up to current to-date standards as well as updating some things. Obviously, there are times when we have to make purchases that are over $2,000, which is currently the limit before taking it to council, and those are routine purchases. So we are taking that limit up from $2,000 to $5,000. We are changing the requirement for competitive bidding, which would be not your typical, I have to get 3 written quotes. Competitive bidding is considered published for 30 days, sealed bids, bonds required, things like that. So we're increasing that from $5,000 to $10,000 for no competitive bidding, and anything over that has to be done through the competitive bidding process, but anything over $5,000 must still be reported to council.
Mr. Mayor? So the revisions since the last time council saw this at the last meeting are contained in section 2-222. And there was a clarification. I couldn't figure out how to get the computer to show me the 2 different red lines from version to version. So the change is in the sentence, the purchasing agent may contact prospective suppliers and vendors and solicit prices and quotes verbally, by telephone, or by written communication. But the sentence preceding that still makes clear that a purchase must be supported by 3 written quotes. So there was clarification about how you can go about getting the quotes, but you still have to have 3 quotes to support your purchase.
Yeah, I think this makes it a lot easier just because we're still going to get the 3 quotes, but we're just cleaning up the language where you don't have to have it sealed, which technically is the way it should have been done, but this just makes it a lot easier and empowers the city manager to do her job easier, so.
Mr. Mayor, if I could add one point or concept that council may want to consider is whether you have budgeted items may change those thresholds. That would be another trigger you could use to distinguish. If it's a budgeted item within certain values, that doesn't need to come to your review. And something that isn't budgeted for clearly would come to council, and you may have a different threshold for that as well.
But as it stands, the budgeted stuff is the only thing that can trigger.
It's just a concept that did not get in here, but that's a concept that I've seen in other communities. And
Could streamline things, and yeah.
I think this is a good first step because certainly, personally, eventually, it would be nice to, what I'm envisioning is having a policy. We talked about the local bidders giving preference, but then there would have to be stipulations. Like, for example, if they could show that they are the most competitive, steering towards a local business in South Lyon. So the point I'm making is that's not something I want to talk about tonight, but I think this is a policy that we could always revisit. Tim did a really good job. I'm sure it wouldn't take very long to review that next portion, and then maybe kind of the other items I want to look at, we could talk about as well, but I think this is a good first step.
Mary.
Forgive me, when I'm reading this, I just want to make sure I understand this correctly. We are going to be expanding the amount of money that we're allowing our department heads and our city manager to spend without having come to council. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
That's one part of it.
So I take issue with this because if we're having budget issues at the moment, I would like to go through with a fine-tooth comb and make sure that department heads and the city manager are coming to us. I would rather not expand the amount of money that they can spend, but rather tighten it. So I take the opposite view, and I understand we have 3 bids that are necessary, so we can kind of hold them accountable. But I think we're taking a step backward when it comes to our budget instead of moving forward with trying to get that in place. So I don't necessarily know if I could be understanding this incorrectly, but that's just how I'm understanding this from the reading. And again, I missed the discussion 2 weeks ago, but what I saw from the meeting and from what I'm reading here, I see this as a step back.
The one safety valve is that none of that action can take place without the city manager's approval. So if a department head brings forward a proposal, it would go to the city manager, and their approval is the only way that takes place, so.
I still don't think that we should be expanding the amount of money if we have a budget crisis at the moment and we are trying to really crunch the numbers and focus on getting ourselves out of the red line. I don't think we should be giving more money out and saying like, hey, you have a $5,000 limit instead of a $2,000 limit. I'd rather keep the $2,000 limit, and I'd rather council look it over and say yay or nay. I think this is a step backward. Especially, maybe if it would be different if we weren't having the budget issues that we are having, but in light of where we stand currently, I don't necessarily know I can vote in favor of this.
But this stuff isn't driven by elective things. It's been driven by things that come up that break and they need attention. That's been the driving force between why this came forward, so.
I get it, I do, but it's worked so far in the past. I'd rather they still come to us. And that way we know what's going on, we're in the loop, and I'm not trying to say, hey, we're inhibiting Chief Collins or Chief Kennedy. I'm sorry if this is going to inhibit you, I know it is, but at the same time, though, in the eyes of a budgetary crisis, I would like to keep a stronghold on things instead of giving more, I don't want to say power, or flexibility when it comes to money. I just want to take a conservative approach.
No, it's one more check.
One more check, one more balance, and I don't think it hurts. I'm sorry, guys.
Maggie?
For clarification, as I understand it, Tim, is if it's under $10,000, it's open market, and it needs prior approval of city council. It's only when the dollar amount is less than $5,000, which is $4,999, that you do not need prior approval of city council, but you do need approval of the manager. So I think that there are sufficient checks in here, and this is a good step to modernizing the city in terms of streamlining governmental decisions. So I'm going to move that we approve the second reading of the ordinance to amend the purchasing ordinance, Article 6, Purchasing, Chapter 2, Administration of the Code of Ordinance of the City of South Lyon is presented.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Hold on,
Aye.
Tim's got some more information he wanted to pass
I
along.
just wanted to say this language and the way it's structured is a little bit obtuse. It's hard to read. It doesn't read very well. And this was presented as a quick amendment to raise that level and create some efficiency among the department heads. I'm not sure that anybody drafting this fresh would come up with the way this is structured and worded. It's a little bit awkward.
I think you should give yourself some more credit. I
Yeah,
think it's
nice
great.
job.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay. Good job again, Tim.
Thank you.
All right, budget.
I don't have anything tonight.
No.
I know, what a shock.
How can that be?
I know, I'm good.
Harvey?
I'm good, thank
Joe?
you.
No, good, thank you.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
Downtown, you're up. I know it's early.
Handed out the report. I just wanted to note something. Driving in this morning, I was really proud of Chief Kennedy and the fire department for putting up the flag downtown, recognizing 9/11. So I think big kudos to Chief for that. Thank you. The items, I guess, to quickly point out, the final preparations for Oakland County's Heritage Conference. Pretty much everything's set. That's this Friday from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. So if anybody's wondering what about 125 people are doing in town, that's what that's all about. It's going to be basically at the South Lyon Hotel, or the theater, and then over at the Presbyterian Church. The final edits have been made for the new business directory. That's over at the printer. We should have that back in 2 weeks.
Awesome.
It'll be about the first time in about 10 years that we've had a complete business directory. So that'll be great. Gary Fagan, South Lyon Collision, and his daughter at the now newly named A Good Day Cafe are adding extra sponsor money so we can print a lot more of those business directories. Let's see here. Well, Gary hopes, he mentioned last week, he still hopes that within 4 to 6 weeks, approximately 4 to 6 weeks, to have the Good Day Cafe open. It's still, the concept is still that it's a breakfast lunch deli, and it'll close about 4 p.m. each day. The Tropical Smoothie Store, of course, opened last Friday, about a week later than they had anticipated. They actually had their certificate of occupancy, but it took them another week to kind of get it clean and in condition. So, and it's great. I've been up there twice. It's dangerous. So, that's really about it, unless there are questions.
Status of the signs downtown for the trucks, I was kind of hoping the whole thing would be,
Well, everything's been turned in, and they're.
that was my hope, that they would get it fixed before school.
Chuck said that he was going to execute the request and honor the 2 to 3 month time frame. So I haven't talked to him since the last council meeting, but I will soon. I have to talk to him on another matter to get the crosswalks restriped. So talk to him soon.
Those cones that they're out on the street with the crossing for the farmer's market work fantastic. Wish we had more of them.
Those are great.
Because the people now are just stopping. They're not even driving over them. They're just stopping and thinking, like they're supposed to stop, and there's no one there, so that's even better.
We purposely chose the language on those signs that said yield to pedestrians instead of stop, because actually now those signs could be congesting traffic more than we ever anticipated. But it is adding to the safety, so we're happy with them too.
That's good.
Bob, what's the word on the hotel? I heard a rumor that it was being
They
pushed to
found out
construction.
this morning they're probably not going to be open for Pumpkin Fest because the health department will not allow them to have like a partial opening with a limited menu and limited use of the bar. So
Who do we
they
need to
have
talk
to be
to?
completely finished in order for the Liquor Control Commission and the health department to give them the final approval. So I think they're hoping for October 1st now as their target.
Okay. Thank you.
Glenn too, we got our exercise over the weekend, moving furniture.
Hundreds of chairs,
Hundreds
yeah.
of chairs, felt like thousands of chairs is what it felt like, and many, many stairs.
Oh, for the parking lot, right. The parking lot was just restriped today. Well, it was resealed last Sunday, or Sunday morning, and
I
then
think so, right.
striped today.
The wait is gonna be worth it though, because from what I've seen on the inside and what's going on, that, yeah, it would be nice to be there for Pumpkin Fest, but probably that's like bittersweet for Corey because they'd have so much people, but the people would be probably ready to kill themselves after being there with that night, trying to get this thing up and running. So if he has to wait a couple more weeks or whatever it is to get it open and do it right, he's not gonna have any problems getting people in there, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's exciting. The interior is, the old South Lyon Hotel is gone. But the new South Lyon Hotel is going to have kind of an industrial feel. It's got a great design going inside. It's going to be softened by a lot of photos of the old hotel, things hung from the ceiling. Of course, the interesting tie-in with Superb Fabricating on the rail details. They're eventually probably going to do the fence. The wood fence will be replaced with a product from Superb. Michigan Seamless Tube, not to be outdone by Superb Fabricating, is going to be involved with the actually footrails on the bars. So the tie-in with the local industry is really clever.
That's terrific, yeah.
Yeah,
So I think the inside will be exciting.
Is the Superb Fabrication and the tube mill stepping up and
Yeah.
a lot of other local businesses, and it's taking on quite the flavor really quick, so I think people will be shocked when they walk in, but it's gonna be a good shock,
Yeah, I agree.
so stay tuned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just have a question, Mr. Mayor. You said you were carrying those chairs up the stairs. Why didn't you use the elevator?
Not working yet. That's a good question.
This was John's way to get that true fit or whatever it is.
Yeah, Glenn held his own. He held his own, running up and down the stairs. It's 25 stairs, man, that's a lot of stairs, a lot of chairs, a lot of stairs. Manager's report.
All right. To start, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge that this is Patriots Day in this country, and remember all of those that we lost on 9/11, both citizens, first responders, volunteers, all who will not be forgotten. I also want to acknowledge all of our servicemen and women that have sacrificed for our country in the years since that day, as well as have served our country since we became a country. I'd also like to take a moment to remember Steve Renwick. He was a longtime city employee and the former DPW superintendent. He passed this last weekend. Though I did not personally know Steve, I have spoken to many employees and residents that remember him positively and with great fondness. The final Pumpkin Fest meeting is this week with preparations for the event in the final stages. They are still seeking volunteers, and so if you're interested, please go to southlionpumpkinfest.com. It's also not too late to enter the Scarecrow competition. Those applications are due September 15th, and you can still run for register for the Pumpkin Fest 5K run. Pre-registration ends on September 17th, or you can register the day of the race. As Bob mentioned, this Friday is the Heritage Conference being put on by Oakland County and hosted by South Lyon and Lyon Township. What Bob did not tell you is that he will be hosting a walking tour in the downtown for groups both in the morning and the afternoon. So if you get a chance to welcome the visitors to South Lyon while they're out walking with Bob, please take a chance to do that. And that's all I have this evening.
I have a couple questions.
Yep.
Lynn, I just wanted to know, I have two questions. The Knolls of South Lyon on the corner of Mill Street and the entrance, I noticed that the crosswalk, it doesn't have the bumps, the ADA compliance. Do you know if that was a requirement for those to be there? Because I just want to make sure it wasn't missed if it was supposed to be there.
It must have been missed because ADA, the textured crossing so that those with visible or vision difficulties are required at any ADA intersection.
Yep.
So I will look into that and get with the current developers.
Okay, yeah, and if he has to rip that up, I mean, that's what needs to happen, so, if that's the case, so thank you very much. Then, yeah, thank you for looking into that. My next question was, I was brought to my attention by a gentleman, a veteran. He said he was walking, and maybe I have the story wrong, but he said he was walking through, I believe it was the historic village, and the light wasn't on the flag. And I was just curious if that's any truth to that. At night, it wasn't on, so do we typically have a light on there? I haven't paid attention enough.
If the flag is flying, it is under flag etiquette to be required to be lit.
Right,
So
yeah.
the bulb may have been burnt out. I will check with,
Okay. Maybe I was given the wrong information, but I was brought to my attention. I thought I would at least ask, and that's the case. Yeah, maybe it was burned out. I wasn't sure, so. That's all I had. Thank you.
Hey, Lynn, if you hear about the funeral arrangements for Steve, can you let us know?
it is visitation Tuesday from 2 to 8 p.m. at Phillips, visitation Wednesday at 10 with the funeral at 11, both at Phillips Funeral Home, and then going to the graveside.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Repeat that on Wednesday?
Tuesday, 2 to 8. Wednesday, 10 visitation, funeral at 11.
And that's at Phillips?
And that's all at Phillips.
Okay.
Thanks, Lynn.
Jeez, I did not know that.
Anyone else?
Not for Lynn, no.
Council comments?
Depot Days was terrific, a perfect day, beautiful event, well managed. The whole thing was really spectacular. There was a plaque ceremony for both Bob Martin and Bob Trimitere, and that was kind of nice to see all the DPW guys out there to support Bob and what had taken place over there. So that was terrific. There was Depot Days is really a very interesting and very important animal, especially to Historic Society. They had a guy that was a doctor from the late 1700s going through his apothecary chest of, how they would attend to people's ailments back then, and he would keep in character and things. It was really quite interesting. A nice guy, and the beekeeper, he's always a big kick for young and old. Kind of talked about the hive collapse syndrome thing, and so that was kind of nice. There was all kinds of vendors, the tractors out there. They ended up bringing in a little train for the little kiddies. Essentially, it was like a lawnmower with some wagons behind it that were painted cute colors, and the kids climbed in and got to drive around the park. So that was an awful lot of fun, and I was really enjoying the fact that we capitalized on that south side of Dorothy Street on the lawn that this is part of the city's park. People were parking there, and it was really, it had a really nice look to it. It softened the view of all these cars parked, and it was closer than walking across the water plant to get to that last parking lot over there. So I enjoyed that. I was kind of curious about the information from MERS. Did they ever provide you?
I have half of the report. I was expecting to have the last half because they had requested 30 days to do it at the end of last week, but I don't have it yet. So I will be following up with them this week to make sure that we have it before the next meeting.
Okay, because, if we find some potential candidate for that director position, we need to be able to react. Water, I don't know if anybody had seen this. There was a lady in town that had her water meter or water heater replaced, and it was $180 for the permit from the city. which is just crazy high. I ended up polling these communities around us, like Lyon Township and Novi, Plymouth Township, and one other one, I think it was Wixom. So it was like Lyon Township was $40, Brighton was $55, Novi $60, and it was $70 if you have a contractor do the permit for a water heater in Plymouth Township. This really struck me as that seemed a lot more in line with the amount of activity that is conducted in the course of changing a water heater. So I had called Dennis Smith, our building inspector, to ask him what gives. And essentially, I was told that the state had changed the game where both it either has to be a mechanical and plumbing permit or inspection, or a plumbing and electrical inspection. And in our fee schedule right now, both of those are a $90 hit. So Dennis had recommended that he made the recommendation that we should end up changing that to be $54, which is much more. He said that that's essentially about the activity level to cover the costs of what involvement those two inspections would end up having. It's a pretty straightforward thing. They do a test on gas pressure and make sure nothing is leaking. So I would really like us to address this, and I would urge everybody on this council in particular, but anybody in the public, if you've had a permit that you think that the fee seemed way out of line for how much activity that seemed as though the inspector was involved in that, please either call me, call City Hall, let somebody know so that we could kind of take a review of that and see if it seems as though it makes sense. When we did that fee schedule approval, it was sort of with the understanding that we were all in range of what typical pricing of our neighbors was, and that one just stands out like a sore thumb. That's to the point of being punitive. Okay, Tim, I noticed in your billing this month you were at 49.2 hours. Was that a function of there was just nothing to pursue? Was it because of difficulty contacting people that you needed to speak with to move issues forward? Because I would really like us, we're paying for, that retainer's 80 hours. I would love us to be as close to hitting that mark as we can every month.
Yes, there was a period following the budget approval process where the 2 months were down compared to previous months. I think this month, the bill was just going out, I think today. I think we were just under the 80-hour mark.
Yeah, okay, that's good. So, all right, I appreciate that. I wanted to tell Steve, Jack and Janet Renwick how sorry I am that with the loss of Steve. That had to have been very difficult for them. And lastly, the website management. We've spent an awful lot of money, an awful lot of time has been invested in that, and it's a very lackluster product in my view. There's an awful lot of stuff that's antiquated information. There's an awful lot of stuff that simply isn't on there. I would really like, I think that Joan or somebody like that in the pool of City Hall should have the ability to make updates according to what their schedules are so that things can happen in a little bit more real time. The idea of having to come to a meeting and ask for things that are months old to be adjusted, I think is really, it's not in our best interest. We spend a lot of time and money in that thing, and the thing should actually be functional so that it's an assist to the people that live here. I mean, why go to the website only to have to call City Hall to get that information? So I would I would really urge you to loosen the reins on your being the sole provider of putting information into that site. So-
I am not the sole provider. Actually, every City Hall employee, other than Bob Donahue and Chris Regentic, Marianne Jameson, and Judy Archie, were all trained on how to make changes and updates, and all have authority to make changes and updates to the website.
So every time I make a comment in City Hall, the suggestion is that you've got the key and you're the only one that actually has access. That the ones that are there all the time aren't the ones that have the ability to make those updates.
Every single person, Judy, Lisa, Lori, Joan, Phyllis, Judy Archie in the sewer department, Marianne Jameson and the
Perfect,
DPW,
okay.
they all have logins and access and have been trained.
All right,
I have a
Well,
question. Can
all
I,
right.
can I add on to it?
Absolutely.
Out of curiosity, though, this is just a question. Do we have, again, a checks and balance system? So say, for instance, all these different people have the ability to go online and update. Does someone check it periodically and say, hey, this changed. Did you update it? Is this on your calendar? Did you hear what happened at the meeting? This needs to be updated. And just cross-reference with each other?
That's a
Is
good
there any
idea,
type
right.
of, like a
Do they do a
foolproof system?
cross-reference? No. The purpose behind training everyone in all of the different departments was so that as changes were made in their department, they would be able to update their page.
So I guess if my question is, if I have not necessarily a complaint, but just earlier I had said, hey, planning commission wasn't updated, it's out of date, people have resigned, et cetera, then whoever's job that is, do I come to you or do I go to that person?
You would normally go to Megan, but I can tell you she won't be in the office tomorrow, which is why I said I would update it.
I just, from this is my perspective, and I can't speak for anyone else, but I think we need a better system. I do. I think we need a system where, you know, it might be so-and-so's responsibility, but the buck has to stop with someone else who maybe has higher authority. I know you have a lot on your plate, but if you have an assistant or whomever it might be, there needs to be some other checkpoint, because if it's falling through the cracks, that's just hurting our community. They need to go online and have updated information at their fingertips, because that's what the whole point of the internet's for. So if we're lacking there, we just need to have another system in place or another procedure to get up to speed. And I'm not by any means blaming you or blaming anybody. I'm just saying we need to come up with a different procedure or process. That's just my theory.
I think that's a good idea, whether it's just a log of things that need to be attended to and you designate somebody else to do it. I mean, you're the lead dog down there, so just tell people to do it.
I do designate a lot of the website information.
So to add to that too, I guess, it's the website development, software, hard drives, whatever, it's all IT in a sense, and it's like in your company that you have, if it goes down, you're down, you know, and you don't know what it's gonna do and the ramifications till it happens. And, so what you're saying, and I agree with you, each department should be responsible for their departments. I think we should probably make a statement this week that each department go through their preferred information that's on that site to make sure their links are working and the information is up to date. And if it's not, then to advise you that they're going to go in and make the adjustments and changes. The only reason why I'm saying advise you is because if they go in and they hit the wrong button and make a switch and the whole thing goes down and then you're unaware of it, you know, then it makes you look bad too.
Okay.
So, at least we know they're going in and they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, and it gets brought up to where it needs to be.
Well, their login information would be on that error, so it'd be well
Yeah,
known.
it happens. That's what happened at our office today. So,
I have another comment. Again, I'm sorry to prolong this, but if a resident were to call City Hall and say, hey, you know, I need X, Y, and Z information, I don't think, and again, this is just my opinion, I don't think it's an acceptable response to say to them, hey, it's Megan's fault. She's not going to be in the office for X amount of days. I think that doesn't matter to them. All they care about is getting information. So I think we need to come up, if people were to call, I'm not saying that customer service is supposed to be our strong point, but I would hope that we would offer some type of customer service and say, hey, it's not so-and-so, it's our bad, we'll fix it, you know what, let's go ahead and get you the information you need and update it. I don't think we should be passing, and again, this isn't you, I'm just saying in general, even if you know it's a specific department's fault, I would just, you know, maybe check with them and make sure that they own it, but we should never be telling our residents, oh, it's so-and-so's fault, they're going to be out of the office. Get them the information they need and don't give them that response. Because that to me is passing the buck, and that's our fault. That's our responsibility to keep them with information promptly at their fingertips. And if we drop the ball, I don't think we should be giving our residents excuses.
And if we have people in the office that can answer the question, they do. We don't pass the buck.
Okay, I
And
just
as
want to make sure.
That's why I said Megan's not going to be in the office tomorrow, which is why I said I would do the update, because
Okay.
I'm not passing the buck.
Okay,
You know,
Thank you.
I think to expand on that, though, if there's a record, if somebody's out that has the responsibility of that, if Judy or whoever is answering the phone, they know that they're out, they can end up making a little note and then putting it on their desk, sending them an email about it or whatever, so that there's some kind of a chronicle of the request for that information taking place.
have we beaten the dead horse?
Yep.
I would just like to point out, there is a report of concern under the How Do I on the city website, that people can pick a department and submit to the city a question, concern, information that they're looking for, and it will go to somebody in that direct department.
Most people are going there for real-time information, though, so, you know.
Right, but if they don't find it and we're closed, you've got that
Yeah.
emails.
Well, I mean, that's
that
a nice
Form
backup, but-
submission.
That's true. I'm more concerned on the other end of it, as in the city employee end of it. So are the city employees watching the meetings and staying abreast of everything
Yeah,
that's going on here?
Having listened to their conversations, yes, I'm quite certain they are listening to
Here's
and
the
watching the
entertainment
meetings.
value in
You
their
know what though,
meetings,
but it's not, to me, it's not their responsibility to do that. In my eyes, it's whoever is at the meeting, so say it's you, say it's whoever it is, to say, hey, this is your department, make sure you update it, and then check back with them and say, hey, did you update that? Just want to double check. Oh, you didn't? You should probably get on that. Just do a cross-reference, because if they're not here and they don't watch the meetings, I don't expect them to watch the meetings. So how do they know what's happening? They're busy, they have lives. That's why I said we need to come up with a new system. Sorry, we've beaten the dead horse.
We're just making it harder than it really needs to be. It shouldn't be that
It shouldn't be that hard. It shouldn't be.
It can become very difficult. So, okay, thanks.
And I just wanted to say, 9/11, I'm delighted that the fire department does that the last couple of years. That's really quite a tribute there. So that I really do appreciate that. It really brings the message home.
Me?
Thanks.
Do you have anything?
No, go ahead. Who's next, me or Joe?
All right, we can
You
go down the run.
pick your poison.
Pick Joe.
All right, thank you. Couple
We've been taking this for a while, so. go ahead.
Go ahead.
Couple notes. Lynn, actually, I wanted to maybe give a little more positive spin and say that I do think you are doing a good job. When it comes to the website, I look at where the website used to be. It was from probably right around the time when I was born. Who knows? To updated, brought into the 21st century. I find it user-friendly. I think there could be some things we can improve upon. There's always room for improvement, just like I said with the purchasing policy, but that can all be done in due time. It's not something that we need to jump at all at once. I look at where it was and where it is, and I'm very proud of it. Some of the things that we have brought up to date has been the online bill payment, based up from you bringing that to us. Grant software you recommended for the city. City council members have now received new email addresses, where in the past it was just all personal email addresses, and majority of the council members use those. And so technologically, I think the city is moving forward. Now, again, is there room for improvement? Yes, of course. But I think we're moving in the right direction. Some other things I jotted down as I was thinking about this was our vacation policy has been modernized. The fee schedule has been updated. Our dangerous buildings codes and ordinances have been brought into compliance, which have been out of compliance. I could go on and on. I mean, the border review has been revitalized. We also have new businesses coming downtown, and we're finally working on MERS. So I'm not going to focus on the few nitpicking areas. I'm going to focus on the positive that I think is happening with this city. Now, next, I just wanted to, so thank you for that. Next, I wanted to mention that for the residents that attend, whose students attend South Lyon East, as we know, it's football season, and I wanted to give some kudos to the South Lyon East Cougars varsity football team for winning their game 42-13 over Dexter. They've been struggling in the past with that program. They have a new coach in there that they've had past couple years, and they pulled up a victory, and it was quite a beatdown. So congratulations to the Cougars on that. Also, for our senior citizens, if you haven't learned already, there's an opportunity to take advantage of Wendy's giving 50% discounts to senior citizens on Tuesdays. So every Tuesday, if you show up to Wendy's, you can get a 50% discount, and it's 55 older. So that's good for our senior community. Also, wanted to state that I'm looking forward to Pumpkin Fest. So I know everybody's going to be very excited to walk in the parade and attend all the festivities, and just really looking forward to it. With that, wanted to say goodnight. Thank you for listening to me tonight, and enjoy your week. Thank you.
I wanted to just kind of give a heads up that with Pumpkin Fest, they still need volunteers. So if you are able to volunteer, you know people who are needing hours for volunteer, National Honor Society, whatever it might be, please go to www.southlionpumpkinfest.com. Also along those lines, if you know a fantastic band, encourage them to enter the Battle of the Bands. I know currently there's only 2 bands that are enrolled, but if we can get more bands, it's going to be a great event. It's going to be a fun competition. So if you know any local bands that would like to compete, Battle of the Bands, again, same website, www.southlionpumpkinfest.com, volunteers, Battle of the Bands. Along those same lines, I had the pleasure of running in the Witch's Hat Run last Saturday, and I just thought it was the coolest event. It's every year, it's really well done. Coach Smith and all of his volunteers, all of his workers, the South Lyon cross country kids, all do an excellent job putting everything together. The trails that we run, I run them every day, but it's just different when you have a whole crowd of people running with you and just the fun atmosphere. It's a really cool event. And I also wanted to give a kudos to, I'm not sure who it is, but the person who created the logo for this year's Witch's Hat Run. The logo, if you haven't had a chance to see it, is really cool. Go to their website. It's just something totally different, and I actually wanted to go back and buy like 3 more shirts because I love the logo that much. So that was a great event. Aside from that, there's another run coming up for Pumpkin Fest, the Pumpkin Fest run, which I believe is the 23rd. So if you haven't registered for that, do so. Like I said, the running community in South Lyon is big, and they take their running seriously, and they have fun with it too. So join the fun. Thanks, you guys.
Appreciated the flag over downtown this morning. That's all I've got. Thank you.
Yeah, to Steve's family, I just found out about that. I wasn't aware that Steve passed away, and our thoughts and prayers are with Steve's family. He was an entertaining guy when he worked for the city, so he's really going to be missed. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. First of all, I just want to make an announcement that the Garden Club is going to be meeting tomorrow night at the Salem South Lyon Library at 6:30. So for all you individuals like myself that can't get enough of gardening at this time of year, here's another great opportunity to sit and chat with gardeners. Bring your own chair because we're going to be sitting outside in the gardens. Next, with respect to Steve Renwick, I got the phone call over the weekend, and many of the group that I sort of hung around with that knew Steve, it was a tough weekend. And the reason for me why it was tough is Steve Renwick was one of those individuals, he's a passing generation. He was what we called the most perfect public servant. Steve Renwick was a very humble man. He did not ask for glamour. He didn't ask to be in the newspaper. He did not look for fanfare. He came to work every day. He did his job. He did it very quietly. He never asked for a pat on the back. He never asked for his picture in the paper. He never asked for a line or a quote. He was just a perfect public servant. He will be missed because I think in the passing of Steve, is the passing of a generation of public servants that just served the community, served the people that they were there for, stayed out of the politics. He didn't get involved in it. He just came to work and did his job for the community. Many of us felt he's probably the finest head of DPW that the city has ever seen, just because of his humility. He was the kindest man I ever met, and I got to know Steve when I was on the board of directors at Active Faith. So to Steve, Godspeed. To Jack and Janet, I'll see you tomorrow. Next, on 9/11, as we all know, the day that time stopped. First, I would like to thank and extend my sincere gratitude to the first responders, not only in South Lyon, our brave fire and police professionals, but the first responders who risked their lives on 9/11 in New York. I want to thank each and every one of you. On this anniversary of 9/11, and with the recent disasters, natural disasters, including the hurricanes and the earthquake down in Mexico, let's remember those who have been devastated by disasters and those who have lost their lives so suddenly, particularly those on 9/11. Let's remember and pray for those families forever that have been changed by grief and have been changed by loss. Hopefully, we will find time to bring consolidation and comfort to those who have suffered injury. Let us hope that those who have survived are healed of their memories of devastation, and let's pray for their strength and their courage in facing the long road of rebuilding. The text for this comment came from Catholic Relief Services. We are blessed to be in a community like South Lyon. No matter where you live, we have a roof over our head, we have food in our refrigerator, we have electricity, we're able to pass our roads. We are extremely blessed in this community. So hopefully, as things roll out the next couple weeks, we will find a way to give someone a hug, donate some money to the American Red Cross, or find some other act of kindness to help those that are less fortunate. And that we keep and we remember all those individuals that have been hurt by war, by terror, or by natural disasters. Keep them in our thoughts and our prayers. On that note, good night, everyone. Thank you for allowing me into your home this evening. Have a great week, and I'll see you again at the next meeting of the City Council. Good night.
Something that you said, Mary, about the Battle of the Bands, back a long time ago, when I had my business downtown, I was in charge of the music, and we didn't have a Battle of the Bands, but we had a giant jam session. So I'm kind of hoping that that potentially could happen as well, when these guys all show, these women and guys all show up together.
I'm judging the
You
event.
never know
I
what's
want to
going to happen,
judge more
because we
bands.
had young kids from the high school playing with seasoned, musicians, that someone showed up that people were like, wait, why are they here? Kind of like, and it was one of the, kind of the coolest moment I've had in a long time, because I couldn't believe they were all playing together, and it shows what happens when people get together like that,
Pretty cool.
So I'm hoping, if you got people out there that have bands, get them in, because it'll be a fantastic event.
You've got time.
The 9/11, it gives, I don't know anybody personally that was involved in that, but it gives me goosebumps still, even when we had the moment of silence tonight, because I think we all remember where we were, I think, when that happened. And I was total shock, and I still am, that took place. And I always go back to this a little bit. When I did my first Tough Mudder race, which is the Wounded Warrior Project, they give some of their money back. Not much, but they give some back, and it really does help. A little bit helps. I mean, granted, they're making lots of profits off of this, but that day, that first day we ran that event, we went with a bunch of people, happy-go-lucky, have a good time. We had our shirts on. We all matched, color-coordinated. We thought it was cool. Went into tears, all of us, guys and girls both, because we were talking to families and running next to people, firefighters, police, military, people that were in that building that lost their lives, and they were honoring them that day in the event that we ran in. And it was out of state, where we ran our first Tough Mudder race. And that stuck with me to this day, how humbling it is to be in the position we are right now, to consider what happened to those families, and what happened to this nation. You know, without sounding really political, that was a major, major blow. And hope nobody ever forgets it, because those families need all of our support. And we need to remember that so it never happens again, at least on these soils. That's my take on this. So, the downtown, to me, watching what's been going on, you named quite a bit of it. There's been a lot of changes that have taken place. And just watching the amount of people, we live downtown, so we have the advantage sometimes to see how much traffic is downtown. I embrace it, because that's why I live downtown, so I don't really care. I just assume be really, really busy, because that means they're shopping our businesses and going to the restaurants and everything as well. So again, I want to challenge all the people. I know we're busy schedules. Sometimes they're not open at night all the time. On Thursday nights, they're open late. Come out on Saturday, anytime you can, bring your families, especially in between sporting events or whatever. Bring some people maybe from other districts that are here, and let them see what South Lyon has, because there's quite a bit going on down there, and those people are trying really hard. So they'll always have my support, before, after, and later. There always will be. And just check out what we have to offer. The Renwick family, my condolences. Anybody that knew Steve, known him throughout the years, on and off, talking to him. He was such an amazing guy, humble as heck. Whole family. He is somebody that those people don't come around very often, that don't look for the fame, don't look for the fortune, don't look for the publicity, just does it because it feels like that's his calling. The one thing that Maggie didn't say that I think is important is that, I mean, it goes unsaid, everybody knows, but he had 1 million friends. And when you can say you had 1 million friends, when you can say Steve had 1 million friends, I think his family can look up and say he did pretty good in this world and setting a good example for everybody. So he's going to be missed. And with that, thanks for letting us come into your house tonight.
Call for adjournment.
All in favor?
Aye.
Second?